If you've got an inquisitive mind and you're curious about things, you can be a researcher. I mean, research sounds like such a daunting word, like, oh my gosh, and somebody's, pouring test tubes or working in some lab in the basement somewhere,
Like a
so
mad
like
scientist.
a mad scientist doing some crazy. People are coming in a way more isolated, and just reliant on just looking into their phone rather than having conversations, meeting with colleagues and peers, being involved in community activities, having meetings, and even the various other kinds of forms of interaction that I think are so crucial for development, and you learn so much from that interaction. So I've been very intentional about that over many years, working in the scientific arena to develop new therapies, develop new ways to preserve functions in terms of a man's ability to perform. In the world of prostate cancer, I've been a prostate cancer surgeon for many years. Now, there's always been the thought that if you go about prostate cancer treatment, be it surgery or radiation in the pelvis, you will lose your ability to achieve erections and be functional that way. And so well, I've been very intentional over many years, and now in recent years, really making some great advances, I think, about how we can do prostate cancer surgeries better while preserving functions in the pelvis.
Turn this up, turn this up.
Your professional development is one of the keys to your career success. When you combine your desire to grow with actionable steps, your journey to success becomes an incredible reality.
Hi, I'm Paul Ferranbi, aka IncrediPaul, and welcome to IncrediPaul Leadership, where I talk to incredible people doing incredible things so we become the most incredible versions of ourselves. First off, if you're only listening to this episode, I want you to know that you can also watch it on YouTube. Regardless if you're listening or watching the show, thank you so much for your support. Today, I have the honor of having Dr. Arthur L. Burnett, or Bud, on the show. He's a globally recognized Johns Hopkins urologist, researcher, and educator whose pioneering work in men's health and erectile dysfunction has transformed healthcare worldwide. So that was just a snippet of you, Bud, but how about you introduce yourself the way you would do it?
Well, thank you, Paul, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. Certainly my delight to join you here and be part of this program. It sounds like you've done great with this sort of activity for many years, and I'm just honored and delighted to be part of it. So let me tell you who I am. I go by Bud. I try to keep it just kind of low key,
Yeah.
easygoing.
Yeah.
Some would want to put me on a pedestal for all I've done. And I just tell them I'm just a regular guy who's had some good fortune and opportunities and was able to ascend through ranks of college, medical school, training as a surgeon and then urologic surgeon, and have been at Johns Hopkins now about 40 plus years, both as a surgeon, a scientist, as an educator, advocate for men's health. I have run a research laboratory for many years. I've done a number of discoveries related to how we can improve men's health. I'm an advocate for men, particularly Black men, with regard to prostate cancer. And so I'm very much involved with a lot of activity that goes on in that arena. So I've been blessed. I've had a lot of hats I've worn with activities I've been involved with over many years.
Yeah, sounds like you've worn a lot of hats for sure. Love to
Yeah.
hear it. Incredible background. I want to dive a little bit deeper into you. I know you've been at Johns Hopkins 40 years now. Growing up, are you doing what you've always wanted to do, or kind of talk me through how you became who you are today?
Sure. Well, life takes you in different directions. Sometimes it's a matter of exposures. Sometimes they're just talents that you have. And with some opportunities, you go in that direction. I grew up in Washington, D.C. I came from a family of a first-time professional. My father was able to go on to law school. But all before that, nobody had really achieved much in the world of higher level education. So I think I learned from him, and my mother being very encouraging. She was a nurse early on, but then stopped work many, many years ago. That education is important. And certainly that's a message I would take to heart and certainly share with the audience that, stay in school, become educated. That's how you can become productive in life and find opportunities. I was able then to go off to college in New Jersey, Princeton University for college. Got exposed to science, had some opportunities to be exposed to some other professionals in medicine along the way. And just felt that was where I needed to be, that helping people. I think physicians have a role in that. In addition, having a talent in sciences and perhaps going to medical school and getting through courses like organic chemistry, things like that. litmus test for whether you can go much farther. I did all well with all that sort of thing.
There you
And then
go.
just had a sense that, my talents were to be a surgeon. I kind of almost knew that, believe it or not, in my teenage years.
Wow.
And yeah, kind of knew that. And a lot of people have dreams, but they never really achieve it. I had a dream and pursued it, and it actually did materialize. And then after Princeton, I was able to go to Johns Hopkins for medical school. I had a stint, if you will, within the military. I was an Army officer for a brief while. That helped me get through school, financing school, and then did well enough going through medical school that with each next tier. I was almost asked, like, stick around, you're one of a kind. And next thing you
Awesome.
know, 40 years later, I've been at Johns Hopkins running research laboratories, doing original research, making advances in the field of urology, and then being an active urologic surgeon all these years.
That is so incredible. I love how you said that even in your teenage years, you already knew that you wanted to be a surgeon, and there people saw something in you, and that just kept you on this path.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think any of us who've achieved things in life should recognize that yes, there's something within our own constitution. We all have some sort of skin in the game to achieve things, but oftentimes you do have opportunities, and you have mentors, and that's one thing I've learned, and certainly even in my more senior years now, I've really been blessed to have mentees, but also have a sense that that's part of giving back and sharing my knowledge and wisdom and guidance, being a mentor in so many ways.
It's really good. I'm glad you brought up mentorship, and I'm curious for you. What do you feel are key qualities that make a good mentor or mentee? Because I think there's both sides of it.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's a two-way street, and my mentees have come in a variety of forms, and some nationally, internationally, some from inner city areas. Many that have had under-resourced and underprivileged backgrounds. I'm very sensitive about trying to help anybody who's had more disadvantages to get a leg up. But you're right; it's a two-way street, and I need to see a spark in that person. They really want to participate in that mutual relationship. If they're just very passive, or they just don't really show me that they've got the heart to do what it takes to be part of this, relationship, then I struggle with that a little bit, because I think they have to have some of that. That it has to be two-way, and some sort of sense that they want to aspire. Then qualities you mentioned that of a mentor is a person, I think, who senses that they have a good sense of self-awareness, a good sense of being non-judgmental, a sense of wanting to understand the other person. They learn to listen and listen to learn, and take in, where that person's talents are, help nurture those talents. Help them understand what they're going to be good at, and then just really enjoy how the development process occurs.
Enjoying the development process. And I'm glad you said process because it's not a destination. It's something that is continual, ever changing, ever learning. I'm curious for you, are there any specific mentors in your journey that you can think back to, maybe stories or things that they shared with you that inspired you to keep going?
Oh, absolutely. There are a variety of mentors, and the reason I even think to say it that way is that, is any of your younger audience members may recognize that you may have various mentors in your career. There may be mentors who know who you are on a personal level, somebody who may be able to help you more on a professional level. There may be a variety of mentors depending on what direction you go. And I've had research mentors, I've had surgery mentors, it's just overall professional advisors in general. So take something from a variety of individuals. You may have one or two that you really have great fondness for, and of course, I've mentioned my parents. I mean, they in a way they're mentors, but they're a good example. But then going into the professional world, I've had a number of individuals, but in particular some in the surgery area. Mentor who helped me go through training in urology at Johns Hopkins, Patrick Walsh. Another research mentor named Don Coffey, who just helped me just to say, the tough questions, who are you? What does it mean? If you find something, chase it, that kind of thing. Just helping you just with the philosophy of research and challenging yourself. So there have been a number of mentors. There's also been other mentors, just somebody like Levi Watkins, prominent Black cardiovascular surgeon, early in my career he was in cardiovascular surgery. And I can recall when he came to visit at Princeton University, where I was in college 45 years or so ago. And he recognized that there was talent at the college level and recruited individuals to go to medical school at Johns Hopkins. And I was one of those in those early years, even though I was maybe only about one of 6 people in a class of about 110 who were of African-American descent. With the challenges of all of that, certainly was able to still excel through that challenge and have that level of encouragement from somebody of that kind of background who was an inspiration to me as well.
It's really good. Yeah, I can only imagine the challenges of a class that large, and you're one of six. So I know you mentioned him, and I'm sure like throughout the years, like we've seen things shift and change. So what were some ways that you were able to keep pushing or do keep pushing when there is setbacks or things that are seemingly limiting you just because of your race?
Sure, sure, sure. Well, life always has challenges, and I almost kind of say it's almost more informative about who a person is and their character, not
Mm,
by what challenges they face, but how they overcome these setbacks. And I think we all have setbacks, and the reality is many of us who particularly may not have had easy paths early in life are going to be challenged in various ways. I mentioned that I was able to really get a good start by going into the military back when I was 17, and then was able to acquire a military scholarship. I was a reserve officer training corporate company, kind of ROTC, Army cadet, and military serviceman early on, and that was able to help finance going to school. And so I didn't let that obstacle get in my way. I was
mm.
determined to do that and move forward. Certainly, there have been setbacks with regard to just academic challenges here and there. We all have, but just being resilient and studying harder and just trying to find the right resources, talk to the right people. Again, have support of family, friends where needed. Certainly, trusted advisors and confidants who can kind of help give you some direction. But just knowing that you don't need to go it alone, and find ways to overcome these challenges.
Absolutely. I think it's really crucial what you said that you don't need to go it alone. There's this aspect of community and finding your community, finding your tribe, finding people who are going to keep pushing you forward. Because I think the interesting thing with social media right now is that we're the most connected that we've ever been, but also the most lonely we've ever been because we're not as intentional with the community aspect, what you're saying to reach out to people. We can at any moment, but we don't. And I'm wondering for you whether it was like with mentees or just things that you've noticed, like maybe are there key things that we should be doing more of? Maybe you did as you were coming through that you don't see as much anymore.
Well, you touch on a very salient message that I think it's good that we're having a conversation on is that how are young people developing these days? And yeah, I think unfortunately, as we've advanced with technology and maybe the skills that are developed through the technology, iPhones and computers and AI, even that people are coming in a way more isolated and just reliant on just looking into their phone rather than having conversations, meeting with colleagues and peers, being involved in community activities, having meetings and even the various other kinds of forms of interaction that I think are so crucial for development, and you learn so much from that interaction. And I think, unfortunately, some of that is perhaps less than maybe in the past. I mean, that's my observation. So maybe somebody formally study this sort of thing, but I think that's been key to my development. I think, and I do think that's potentially a factor that's absent in some of the younger people's development. I'd encourage young individuals to put down the phone, put down I don't need to go to class anymore. I don't need to interact with my peers. I'll just study off a computer. No, there's so much that you can learn from interaction in terms of your emotional intelligence. You're able to interact and really bring more to your ability to make your life productive. I think with some early training to be interactive.
Yeah, to be interactive. I think that's really key. I think, and we'll see the long-term ramifications of a lot of stuff that happened during the COVID pandemic, where a lot of people in their formative years, so like this podcast is really focused on Gen Z professionals in STEM, and all of them were either in high school or in college at that time, some formative years where you're getting to connect with people, learning what it means to be an adult, and then you're in isolation. And I think so we're recording this in 2025, but when it comes out, it's going to be 2026, like coming up on 6 years since that happened. But I think there's
Yeah,
still some lingering effects of it as we try and figure out, like, how do we move forward? Because the technology is great, to your point, but it doesn't replace the human connection, which is so critical for us as people.
absolutely. The emotional intelligence that you have from just having interactions is so important for all of our development processes throughout life, but particularly young people, which is where I sense that this formative in those years. And it is unfortunate that we've had a number of factors, and not just the technology, but you mentioned COVID. That was a setback, and I think missing being in classrooms, being in community activities has had some impact, unfortunately, in a negative way. So let's see whether we can encourage going back to some more of that if we can.
Yeah, so I've definitely been encouraged about that, with just seeing some more creators doing IRL, in real life interactions. So one, I'll give a shout out to, I'm connected with her on LinkedIn. Natalie Neptune's been doing a lot of stuff in New York City, specifically for Gen Z
Yeah,
T. So she's
sure.
been really intentional about having in-person interactions. And yeah, because I think not everyone is talking about it. I think it's still growing, but just understanding. I know what you mentioned with the emotional intelligence piece, especially like the self-awareness piece, but also like the social awareness, just understanding how to interact with people. If you're only interacting with yourself, you just live in an echo chamber, which I love AI as much as the next person because of how quickly you get stuff done. But a lot of that stuff, if you don't input the right things into it, you're not going to get any learnings outside of what you already know. It's just going to repeat back to you what you want for the most part.
Exactly. That's right. And then instead of getting a fresh look and then, appreciating various perspectives, all you're getting back is whatever you inputted, and that's
Mhm.
not helping your growth necessarily.
Absolutely. Well, just aspects of growth, and I'll pivot a little bit because you've done so much work in the medical field, research field, done a lot of stuff with men's health. And I'm just curious for you, what is some key things that I guess, take a step back. Did you always know that you wanted to do research? I know, like, coming to medical school doing surgery, not everyone that does on the medical side does research, and not everyone that does research is an educator. But it seems like you're this mix of all of three of these things. So kind of talk me through that journey of what came first and what kind of led to the other.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a number of remarks that I can offer based on that observation. And Paul, very, very thoughtful question there. I think that being a researcher, it really just has some very fundamental aspects to it, just fundamental precepts. And if you've got an inquisitive mind and you're curious about things, you can be a researcher. I mean, research sounds like such a daunting word, like, oh my gosh, and somebody's, pouring test tubes or working in some lab in the basement somewhere,
Like a
some
mad
like a
scientist.
mad scientist doing some craziness, and then you got to like learn all these formulas and this and that. I mean, research can come in all kinds of forms, from basic science research all the way up to clinical research and just doing trials and things of that sort. But my main thought is we all should be having an inquisitive mind in general. We should all be thinking about things. We don't need to be passive individuals. We need to be thinking about kind of what's new, what's fresh. How can you do something better? How can I improve upon this or that? If that kind of conversation speaks to you, you not you personally, but anybody in your audience, then you can be a researcher. And I was just introduced early on in the environment of Johns Hopkins, which I think is an institution that does promote discovery and innovation, not just producing competent physicians who can just go out and practice and be good practitioners, but also kind of think about how you might be able to advance what we're doing. And I think early on, I kind of appreciated that was kind of how my mindset was working. And so I was able to early on get involved with some research activities, had some foundational grants, and then I had built a lab for about 30 years with some major investigator grants, so-called RO1s, these kind of level grants
Okay.
that go to high-level researchers with some scientific advances I did in the world of men's health and sexual dysfunction, the science behind Viagra. I did all that kind of research work. And I've been known for many, many years with ongoing projects and advances in the field. And the other part of that is you do have a sense of reward, sense of gratification, to the extent that if you're able to kind of have a seed of an idea and then nurture it, germinate it, develop it, see whether it has impact. There's something to that in terms of just a certain sense of life fulfillment and satisfaction. So for your audience, if you think you're working on something, wherever it is, and I'm talking about the medical field, but there could be things in other fields as well. Stick with it, develop it. If you can impact the field in your field of interest, there's no greater reward in life. And money can't replace that. Just doing something to your satisfaction makes sense. So that's kind of how I've looked at it with scientific work over the years. I blended that, as you say, with education, because I also, as we kind of touched a little bit earlier on mentorship, if I'm educating those behind me, I train residents in urology, I train my fellows and others. If I see, in them how they're developing and how they're excited about testing themselves, improving themselves, and I help them get there, that's what education is all about. And so all of these are really, I think, are life lessons that really have provided some level of a sense of, well, I'm doing the right thing here, being around for a few decades before we all leave this planet. Um, this all of it kind of blends together in terms of discovery, teaching each other, interacting, all these kinds of things.
I like how you walk through that. And it is truly a blend, like discovery and teaching, and even what got you there in the first place with your passion for the medical field. And Johns Hopkins, known for cutting edge research as well. And then building on that with the education piece definitely ties back in to the mentorship piece, which is, like I said, at the beginning, I said we're just gonna flow with the conversation, see what happens. This is like mentorship is the key piece that keeps coming back, whether it's more formally or informally, personal or professional. It's just one of those things that you have to be intentional about.
Yeah, yeah, and be purposeful about it. I mean, I know there's, sometimes it just sounds like, okay, it sounds like it's heavy talk here, but it really isn't. I mean, I would hope that, we live life with some purpose, and there's something you gain from that.
Yeah, living life with a purpose. So for you, what would you say your purpose is?
Well, I think one of the big purposes I would say is that if I can be a good role model for achievement, and again, don't think I'm kind of coming up with a new concept here. I mean, I've learned from my parents, my father making progress from his, early years growing up in the farm in rural in Virginia, and aspiring and educating and making progress. But just the role model that speaks to good character, speaks to and using your best talents, being a contributor to society, and then finding a sense of reward, and knowing that you use your talents well and derive something from that in the course of your lifetime. It's about as basic as that, really. That's it.
It makes sense. It may seem basic, or maybe it is basic, but I think it's truly profound to do that because not everyone has that desire or drive. Some people just want to just exist, and I think there is something with having a purpose like as profound as yours and what you've been able to do. And I want to make sure we talk about some of the stuff that you've done, especially in pioneering men's health. If there's like key things or key discoveries that you've had in your research, I'm sure like there's been so many things. So
Sure.
I kind of turned it into a 10-hour podcast because we'll lose people. But let's say maybe in the last 10, 15 years, what has been more of your focus, or what have you been trying to impart on the education side, research side, or just
Sure.
overall advocacy?
Sure. 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 Well, it's a blend of a variety of things.
Yeah.
in terms of the discovery piece you're talking about and research and science. That early on I recognized that we need to help men be men. And, and I bring, a kind of a real scientific kind of perspective to this, saying that, yes, we want to bring, a matter of social support and mental health support, but also if I can bring my background as a scientist to the science of helping men's functions, discovery behind erection disorders and things of that sort, and the science that led the Viagra into that 30 years ago. And now, in the more recent time, even though I've been doing this for 30 plus years, is thinking about how we can improve, and particularly Black men, addressing prostate cancer. And I've had a real purpose in that over many years. But part of the issue surrounding that is how does addressing prostate cancer affect a person's manhood? And in the Black community in particular, the many men are apprehensive about even getting tested. Not to mention that prostate cancer is a disease, unfortunately, that doesn't have a whole lot of early symptoms. And too many men say, I've got too many other life issues and concerns to deal with to even think about getting my PSA, a blood test for your prostate. But the reality is that some men also know that if you get treated, it may impact your ability to perform sexually. It may affect your sense of manhood because it involves the part of the body in the pelvic area and so forth. Yeah, and while a big message may well be, well, think about your family, think about your community, be alive, be there for your family. Don't just think about whether you can perform sexually all the time. But I still think that's an important aspect for men, that they feel like they're intact and functional. So I've been very intentional about that over many years, working in the scientific arena to develop new therapies, develop new ways to preserve functions in terms of a man's ability to perform. In the world of prostate cancer, I've been a prostate cancer surgeon for many years. Now, there's always been the thought that if you go about prostate cancer treatment, be it surgery or radiation in the pelvis, you will lose your ability to achieve erections and be functional that way. And so, well, I've been very intentional over many years, and now in recent years, really making some great advances, I think, about how we can do prostate cancer surgeries better while preserving functions in the pelvis. We know the structures in the pelvis can be affected by surgery. If we can actually improve upon our surgical techniques or technologies to maintain functions, which is what we're doing now better and better, then hopefully men will be less inclined to say, I don't want to get checked. I don't want to get tested. I don't want to think about it because I don't want to lose my manhood. I want to support men, from a kind of biopsychosocial approach, but also bring forward innovations and ways to really address the problem so that we can make sure that guys will be in the right mental sphere of what they want to do, but also know that we can make sure they can still really on a very physical level be functional. And so my duty is to be an educator, not just for my own mentees, but even for the general public with advocacy about prostate cancer. Just as a word about that, it affects 1 in 6 Black men, about 1 in 9 men in general, 1 in 6 Black men. And it has about a 2.5-fold higher mortality rate from delayed treatments in Black men. So this is a real epidemic, if you will, in the medical world that men need to hear. And so I'm extremely focused on how we need to make sure that we address this issue, but do it in a way that's not just social support, but let's really create some impact in the field with interventions that we think do address men's concerns, really.
That's really powerful. I love the intentionality and the purpose behind what you're doing. Like, not only are you trying to treat the prostate cancer, but also preserving the manhood as well, and understanding what are the things that are keeping people back from getting tested. Because there's a whole, I mean, that's a huge part of being a man and losing that. And so just the intentionality behind making sure, like, yes, we want to keep you alive, but also want to make sure you can still perform as a man as well. I think that's really
Oh,
important.
absolutely. It's critical because I think, I encounter this every week, all the time. That a sense of person's manhood is critical to their identity. It's critical to who they feel they are. And we should just not dismiss that, even though we might say, "Oh, just be there for your family, be there for your." Well, that's important, but I think that guys like me, who are the surgeons and scientists, we need to do a better job of really trying to truly address that too.
Yeah, just like the root issue behind it. And especially with Black men, I know like with prostate cancer and then mental health, you go down the list of things that we don't do as well with making sure that we are looking out for ourselves. And I guess just to be clear, like I know you mentioned like the blood tests and things that people should be doing. Like at what age should men start looking into those things?
Well, given the high prevalence of prostate cancer, and the fact that it occurs disproportionately in Black men for various reasons, maybe genetics and maybe environmental exposures. um, while many societies have said, 50, 55, and I won't get into too much granular detail there, the message that many of us higher level Black urologists try to communicate to the community is at age 40, you probably should go and get this blood test, a PSA, that refers to the prostate. And so that would be, just keep it simple. Age 40, you probably ought to at least get a screening PSA, because I've seen it happen to men in their 40s have prostate cancer that's already deadly at that stage in life. Which some might think I'm still too young to have this happen. Well, you know what? It can't happen even in your 40s. So getting at least a screening PSA and having a discussion with your care provider. And so it looks like it's within the normal range. Wonderful. If it looks like it's starting to creep up outside the normal range or even the high level of the normal range, follow-up PSA, maybe soon thereafter, a year or two or so thereafter, may still be appropriate.
Okay. That's good to know. Thanks for sharing that. I just want to make sure because you're here to make sure like people who are listening to this, like I said, my audience is primarily younger Gen Z. But I know there's people who are not Gen Z that also listen to this. And I think it's also one of those things that when you hear something early and often, you're more likely to take action as opposed to if you just hear one time, like a much later. So I think it's really
Sure.
important to highlight it.
Yeah, yeah, and then just kind of, and even if you're a younger audience who may have, a relative or family member that's getting in their 50s or 60s, maybe they can share that message with them as well.
And that's a good point. Very good point. Yeah. I want to make sure, is there anything that we haven't talked about as far as your focus or maybe you personally that you want to share?
Yeah. Well, we touched on a number of things. I know I've sometimes minimized some things I've done. Some people say you're just too humble, don't explain everything that you've done. But I'm not looking to overly promote who I am. I just hope, again, I'm a good role model,
Mm.
and that my purpose here, looking out for men, is communicated well. Certainly know that there's additional resources. If your audience wants to look me up, they can. I've put a couple books out there. I have a new one coming out probably within the year that's going to address more about just what it means to be a man and what manhood's all about and men's health. And just some messages that I think, fortunately, for my stature, being a urologic surgeon, I have a bit of a real credibility, hopefully, to help
Definitely you do.
help, help put these messages out there
Yeah,
that guys should do the right thing. But we need more positive influences. And then again, Paul, you're just a delight to be with you in this program, to be able to join you and with your audience to help just kind of bring these important messages of life to men. And you're doing a great thing. So I appreciate that.
oh, thank you. No, it's an honor to have you on the show. The wealth of knowledge you have and the humility you have as well. I remember looking through the show notes and things that were sent as like Dr. Arthur L. Burnett, but goes by Bud. I was like, what? Just the simplicity of it. And I think that's really important to stay grounded, but I think also not to shy away from the things that you are an expert on, and even to share the audience. I think just a lot of the purpose, like you were mentioning earlier, is really key.
Well, it's certainly, to me, the biggest delight is not the awards, not the accolades, it's just having some impact. And if we're doing the right thing, that's all good.
Absolutely. What is the I know you mentioned that the book that you have coming out soon, but if you want to share about the books that you have that people can pick up, or either like books, website, socials, just so people know where they can stay connected with you.
Sure, sure. To their standard outlets, Amazon and so forth. But these surround prostate cancer. One is Prostate Cancer Survivors Speak Their Minds, and other is the Manhood RX, or Manhood Prescription, which talks about how there's some common men's urologic and sexual function issues that they can look up and use that as a resource. And then the new book that's coming out really is really going to be a very useful a kind of informational guide, if you will, uh, for a community lay audience, not some too medical. I want to make sure it's clear. It's not too overly clinical, but so just really something that anybody can pick up,
Okay.
just to kind of get some good messages about, the purpose of manhood and basic health screening things to do, lifestyle things to be doing, getting your checkups as we talked about, not just PSA, but just general men's health checkups, and also just hopefully getting just a little bit of some of my wisdom, if you will, on what I think manhood's really about. There's so many negative influences and things going on in our world right now. We don't need more men trying to be the Marlboro man, smoking cigarettes and dying an early death. We need guys who really understand what it is to just be authentic and do good things. So that book is going to come out here soon. I think we're wrestling with the exact title. We've kind of toyed around with the penis confidential. May draw a little attention to that, but since it's a man's book, it may be a little intriguing to say, what's this book about? But pick it up. It's not meant to be vulgar or too much of a locker room kind of thing, but really just pick it up and try to hopefully take home some messages.
That's really good. No, I'm excited to hear more about it when it comes out, or when you have a specific date, specific title. Yeah,
Sure.
Penis Confidential will definitely draw some eyes to it. Whether that's the final title or not, I'm sure by the time this is coming out, you probably have a
Yeah.
better idea of the timing, and definitely want to make sure we link it in the show notes, how to stay connected with you, all the incredible work that you're doing.
Well, wonderful. Wonderful. I just enjoyed spending time with you, and we're doing something positive here. Good thing.
Thank you, sir. It's been a joy spending time with you as well. And really turning to the audience, I know you got something from Bud's story. Just from the very beginning, knowing that he wanted to go into the medical field, be a surgeon, and then from there, Johns Hopkins, going into the research side, education piece, but the whole underlying message of mentorship and how key it is, and really having multiple mentors. That's something that you mentioned. I think a lot of times we talk about mentorship and we're just like, oh, find a mentor. But the thing is, it's not just one person that is a mentor that can do everything for you. You need multiple mentors depending on what you're looking for, and making sure you're intentional as a mentee to have that spark that you mentioned, that curiosity, and then finding those mentors that want to pour into you is truly what makes a difference.
I agree. I hear you.
For sure. For everyone listening, thanks for joining us. Make sure you find your mentors, be intentional, be purposeful, and you can truly be incredible.
Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. We'll see you here next time. And be incredible. Incredible.